Welcome, Clay, to In Dialogue. Um, Fritz and I have been inviting people that we think are really interesting and who have a lot of passion for what they're doing. And so here you are. Um, could you say a little bit about what you're up to and what you've been doing lately?
Yeah, so thank you both for having me. I'm so excited to connect with you. I've known uh, Dr. Fritz, but Fritz for a while. So it's great to be with him. It's also great to be in your presence. So I'm a purpose and wellness coach. I work with older adults around reinvention in their post retirement years. After working 30, 40, 50 years of life, how do you figure out not only who do you want to be at this particular point in time? But what are the layers that we need to peel back from the identity structures that have been set up so that you can fully know what purpose looks like for you in this next chapter of your life?
Wow.
Hey,
I love that. There's so many places I want to go with that.
Yeah.
so to put that in context, Clay, you don't know what Sanaya have been working on in other ways and have been talking about. And so you just, off the cuff, just walked right into it and are speaking to it. So please continue, say more. We would love someone listening to this by the end to hear something that could be an amazing takeaway, to be inspired in some shape or form. And Sanai and I are always learning in these dialogues with the really cool people we invite to this sandbox.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll start maybe a little bit more of like the history of how I got involved into this work and why I'm actually doing it. So, for the last 20 years, I've been a purpose and wellness coach in the corporate and not for profit space, working with senior leaders and management and teams around what does purpose look like as far as the organization, as well as making sure the individual is in alignment with the organization's purpose as well. And so around the height of the pandemic, I was coaching at Airbnb, and all of a sudden, older adults started to come to me and they wanted to have a greater conversation around what does reinvention look like for me at this particular point in time. And I thought it was kind of like a farce because, how am I going to support an older adult and reimagining what life could look like in their later years of life? And so my background is in theology. I went to Princeton Seminary and have a master's of divinity in pastoral counseling. And so, as I started to listen more and more to what these older adults were saying, I also heard what they weren't saying. There was not a space that they could go to where they could really understand how to collect all pieces and parts of their lives to figure out what does restoration look like in this next chapter of life, to reimagine the identity structures that have been in their personal, professional, generational, societal frameworks of life. And then the last piece of that is what does healing work actually look like? Our older adults, especially the baby boomer generation, a lot of them are familiar with psychology, with therapy, and things like that. But a lot of them have not done some of the life coaching work, the techniques that I'm really great at doing. And so we don't start off where you want your retirement to be. We start off where what are the patterns and pathologies in your life that existed before? How do we work to figure out, those healing modalities and where you want to go in your life before we actually get to the end result?
Wow. I'm hearing you say reset, reimagining, reinvention, restoration, and it makes me think about almost like a coming back home to yourself in a way. How would you, like, if you were to like offer a gift to those who are listening to be like, this is how you start on that journey, like a little seed or kernel to get them to consider that maybe there's something inside that could be awakened in this way, a reimagining of what is possible, what would that be?
Yeah, I think we would start with one of my exercises I call the identity reshuffle exercise. You could imagine a lot of people, especially when we're doing field research to get to the pain points of what older adults were experiencing, what they're going through. You leave a 40-year career and all of a sudden you're just whisked into retirement. no one ever sits and talks to you about the identities that you have collected along the way, whether that identity is running in a particular office, being the boss, being this person who led this particular department, um, going from a 9 to 5. And so all of a sudden they're just whisked off into this reality of trying to figure out who they are at this particular point in time. And so we look to ask them a few questions around identity. What was the identity that you had in your professional life? What are those key characteristics and what are those key words? Now, who do you want to be in this next particular chapter of your life? Because in order for us to see what we want the future to be, we have to locate the inferences and how to close the gap between your past and your present. And so, and a really great exercise is list those professional identity things that you're bringing into this next chapter. Another part of that, list those familial identity expectations because you're no longer in a 9 to 5 working pattern or capacity. What does it look like for you and your family? Societal, generational, the exact same thing.
I love this. This is such a tangible activity that people can do.
Yeah.
So, what happens, Clay? I'm thinking about all of the words that I've had over the course of my life, like thinking about organizing like keywords for my identities, and then thinking about sort of aspirational identities. And I'm wondering, how do you bridge the gap? Like, what's the next step?
What's the next step? I'm sorry.
Yeah, what's the next step? And let's say that I have two words and they just feel very different. Like maybe I want to get to this place that feels very aspirational. How would I
Yeah.
bridge the gap?
We want to unpack the story behind the origination of the word. And so a lot of times people will say, case in point, um, two individuals. One had her identity structure as being the fixer, and now wanting that to be in the newer construct, um, being the person that receives. And so I asked her, I said, the fixer in your professional life, where did that particularly start? And where did you not say, I no longer want to be that person? And so it led her to go back to when she first started her career. And then there's a through line that happened 10 years after that, 20 years after that. And then roll by roll by roll by roll, she realized she stepped into an identity structure that she not only didn't want, it was never hers to take on. And so she needed to figure out then if her reset is to be someone that is a receiver, how do you now open yourself up to receive while also asking yourself, what do you need to let go of in order to accept what that new reality is?
Oh, I love this exercise. That sounds really beautiful. And really intentional, like actually wondering about how to step into a new way of being, like a new storyline.
Yeah, and from my work as well, I don't know if you know this, but I created a film and a 360 project around this work. Are you familiar with that, Sana?
No, please tell me more.
Oh, okay. So I created a pilot film called Just Beginning, and it looks at two older adults who are baby boomer women going through this whole reinvention process. And so we screened it at DCTV a few years ago. And the women, not only are they going through this experiential process, they're going through my coaching regimen. And so it was really important to me that after people are watching this pilot film, that they're all not going to get to work with me. What skills and what tools can we give them that can be inserted within the film that they can take into their individual lives? And so after the film, I created a full 360 ecosystem kit. And so everything that you see throughout the film, all the exercises, there are trainer programs that we've created. There are wellness programs that we've created as well. And there's an app that we're creating with all the different exercises so that everyone could have, older adults can have a space where they can actually go to be able to utilize some of these techniques and these practical tools.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And can people check that out, like on your website?
Yeah, it's at justbeginning.info. You can check out the pilot film as well as all of our programs and courses.
Yeah. I'm curious, Clay, as you talk about all this, what is purpose for you?
For me personally,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think my purpose is to be an awakener to truth and people. Um, over this past weekend, I was attending a birthday party, and it was just really interesting that a lot of people in the room did not know my background, didn't know who I was, and that kind of thing. And people kept coming up to me and telling me their stories and their experiences and things like that. And so one of the women who was the protagonist from the film, who was actually in the film, she was there. And she said, "You have this really great gift to awaken people just by your presence to the truth of who they really are. And you remove the facades and you remove the identity, you remove all of the things, the mask." And that party was just a reawakening moment for me to really understand that my purpose is truly awakening people to the truest, highest expression of not who they want to be, but who they are in this moment.
It sounds like a spiritual journey when you say
Yeah,
it like that.
definitely, definitely.
Yeah. Do you kind of weave in that with your work, that your background?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. When I first started off my career, no one knew that I had a background in theology. No one knew that pastoral care, pastoral counseling was at the epicenter of what it is that I do. And I had to disguise a lot of that work going to the corporate realm because who wants to go into a space and you have a spiritual advisor? And so, what I would do is use buzzwords and keywords that were more about behavior change to get the people to move in the direction that I know they wanted to go in. And what always happened is their conversation with me always went back to God, higher power, spirit, Holy Spirit, something higher than themselves. And then I would reveal to them what my background was at that particular point in time. And so I became an avatar, if you will, a spiritual avatar by being able to communicate with people and how they specifically need to hear the message that is in alignment with what they truly need. And then it always goes back to this spiritual conversation that you're referencing.
Yeah.
So I want to jump in because, wow, it's kind of cool to watch you, Sana, and Clay, two of my favorite people, do this dialogue because I've known Clay for 15 years. And the essence, did you know it was that long, Clay?
Yes.
Maybe 16, depending on how you count it. The essence of who you are and that energy, whether you were changing the language and the buzzwords to be tailored to the environment, has always come through. Clay is also humble. How many books have you authored so far?
Two.
Okay.
Yeah. Two.
Yeah. And then I think that was our original point of connection is under your first book. Um, there was only Plan A. And I remember reading it line by line. And at one point, I was on like halfway through the book at some paragraph on some page that you probably forgotten you had written, but it's very impactful. And that purpose and that meaning has been a through line with you ever since. And I think I think I knew you had a theological background and felt it, but it really came from this nuclear pirate energy source. Still is pumping right along.
I received that.
Yeah, I think for me too, that I feel like all counseling, therapy, coaching work is spiritual work. And I more and more don't shy away from saying that.
Yeah, yeah, and in particular in my career, I have found that it has been, especially now, very welcoming. People are looking for something higher than themselves in these conversations with themselves, with their teams, and with their families. And I just think it's hard to not have an holistic approach to coaching, conversation, even pastoral counseling, if you will. Nowadays, people really, because everything is so interconnected, people need to see how they show up in all spheres of life and not just in one silo.
Yeah. Mhm.
So I'm thinking about when you talk about the exercise involves some going over the narrative of the individual and how that narrative is shaping how they're going to proceed forward in terms of letting go of an identity or at least recognizing that they may have to mourn the loss of some things in order to accept new things in their lives. And incredibly powerful to um, have people connect to the higher than that is their whole narrative and some of the ways that I'm working with people now, it's also connecting people to the larger narrative of their own ancestors, not just the immediate family, but the past, the history, the systems that are keeping us in the places where we are, preventing us to go to the places where we need to. And Clay, you and I have had also conversations where you have invited, truly invited me to be unapologetically who I am and to accept um, the vision that there. This was one of your visions, by the way, Clay, which is that I was going to be in front of a large group of people, podium, people as far as the eye could see, and then that was like 8 years ago, and it like happened last year, and I was like, I think I called you up and said, "Yo, I think it happened."
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, do that for me.
And let me tell you what he also did for me. He said, "Yeah, and it's going to happen again," and I believe it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, one of the gifts that I've been honing, especially in these last few years in particular, I get chills just thinking about it, is being able to see the past, present, and future of people. And even from the ancestral standpoint, especially in my family lineage, of knowing that that has been something that's been passed down through both my father's line and my mother's line, I was shy away from that, especially going through these systems. Because it's a lot of times it's not anything that people truly, gravitate towards or really feel that that it's real. And so being able to be in spaces where you can actually share those additional gifts, I think is really important.
That's beautiful, Clay. You're talking about, looking consciously and intentionally at systems that you were put into or belonged without your eyes being wide open, maybe in a way. And then slowly inviting yourself to look at things that you are part of, whether that's your ancestry or ways of being that might be invisible to the eye, and consciously choosing them. And I love that because I think that I feel like I'm on a similar journey where I might be in conversation with people. I'm actively, consciously choosing my words,
Hmm.
or I'm choosing how I want to describe myself.
Hmm.
And I'm trying out new ways of doing that or taking some risk. And then also wondering about, well, what are some identities that feel right to me that I could pull from maybe who I've been, who I think I have been, or where has my lineage come from that I could pull some kind of strength from, or some clue about who I would like to be next.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's an ongoing, unfolding journey.
It is, and I love that, Sanaa. For me in particular, I think had I not become an entrepreneur, I think my process would have been a lot slower and stagnant, because being an entrepreneur, you have to show up unapologetically in so many different spaces to ask for what it is that you want, to be clear about your boundaries, to be clear about the work that you're doing, and a lot of times you're doing that in systems that aren't inviting you to be there, that don't want you to really be there. And at the same time, navigating how to literally be yourself in that space, right? And then each year, that for me in particular, I've been growing and growing and getting older, looking back and seeing what was it that was mine that I accepted? What was it that was mine that is really from the heart of who I am? And what is it that I no longer want to accept moving forward?
If someone's listening to this and wants to actively try to identify the systems they might be part of, not just really obvious ones like, our the way our communities are set up, the way our neighborhoods are, maybe academic institutions, but maybe further out they want to see what is the hold of my culture, what's the hold of the markets, what is the hold of all of these things on me? Where would someone start?
With themselves and how they feel. what I have come to really learn about me, having a space of greater self awareness. And when I say self awareness, I'm talking about what are my trigger points and what makes me happy, what makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable, and what brings me joy, what makes me just excited and just literally happy in life. When I am placed in different situations where I am not clear and self-aware about how I am feeling and whatever that system is, it's a disadvantage to me. I don't have actual data. I don't have input to actually be able to say, this is how I'm showing up in this particular environment. And then this is how I don't want to show up. Case in point, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry, guys. I just literally lost my train of thought.
That's
That's okay.
okay.
That's
Yeah.
then we invite just you to be in the moment with the train
Yeah,
and the thought.
I can. It's gone. It's left the building.
Yeah, Clay, as you're talking, like this piece of it that you're talking about right now, like being with your feelings in order to identify like systems that you're part of, it's kind of scary because it feels like, we have to change our identities or like be a different version of yourself, like be yourself, but be yourself differently so you fit in, so you feel belonging, right? In spaces. And we do that so well, I think, often that it feels hard to go to undo that, right? You called about like peeling back identity, like layers of that. And it feels really scary to come into any kind of truth about who one is.
Yeah, and I guess I think about it. There is fear there, but I kind of psych myself up to understand that it's an invitation. If I am never in a space where I can be my full self, who is getting robbed of that? Me, my family, my the people that I'm working with, the people that I'm in connection with, the systems that I am seeking to change. And so for me, it's like, what is the invitation that is being asked when there's a moment of fear, especially around an identity structure? This is a long winded example, but I'm going to offer it to you anyway. Um, I was severely bullied as a kid from age 3 all the way to my junior year in college, every single solitary day, right? And so I'm from preschool to junior in college, I remember verbatim every single solitary experience. What I would have to do in in every day, and I learned this early on, I would have to figure out how I could become an avatar in all these different spaces. I knew how to behave in order to not be picked on. I knew who the person was and how I would have to code switch in essence, or how the vernacular of my words need to be, the bass in my voice, how it had to sort of be deep in different areas or expressions in order to be safe. And so around high school is when I started to realize, wait a minute, you're constantly morphing and shifting who you are in order to make other people comfortable. And every year, a part of myself I would leave off and leave off and leave off until I didn't know who I was. Am I the person that's doing all this switching in order to be safe? Or is the invitation for me to truly figure out how to be myself, scary as it possibly is? What parts of myself am I leaving off from my family out of who I am as a creative individual? And so that's how I learned how to take those scary moments around operating in a system and replacing that with the invitation of having courage to be myself.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Clay. I think that that's really resonant. I mean, there's so many ways that we behave that serve us so well in the moment and that we have to do in order to survive, but we lose, or maybe at some point we want to regain those parts because we need them.
Yeah, yeah. Not only do we need them, but what I've realized too, those are the parts of ourselves that end up becoming much more profitable, much more authentic, and much more of a change agent in the world. People don't want versions of yourself, and usually the greater version of yourself, which is your authentic self, has a pathway towards the shifting and the changing and all those things like that. Once I decide to show up in the fullness of who I am, I saw different systems change outside of me and not just within me.
There's a certain amount of crowdsourced power that can come from, the reconnection of the versions of yourself that had become segmented off. Went through trauma, quite often what happens is pieces of us do get segmented off so that we can survive. But as we come into a state where we can fully be more integrated, we get kind of the power of all the positive characteristics and power of all those parts that were separated off.
Yeah.
But it can be scary because um, in trauma, a trauma response is to cordon off parts of ourselves that were present when the trauma happened. So that invitation and that energy that you bring, that you're describing, I mean, I felt it, and a lot of what we're doing in this space is inviting people who do this sort of work and have this sort of energy, who are making those invitations. And often it's not easy, right? To get here, to get to this, to go through those many years of being bullied and traumatized. But then the version of you that we meet, especially the part that's pulling it all together. Thank you for you. Thank you for that. And thank you for the inspiration um, to keep being me. Again, you and I have had too many of those conversations where we're like, thank you for you. And I'm like, no, thank you for you. Um, Now I'm gonna, because there are those who are listening that may have histories that are not as well resolved at this moment. That might say if they go into their past, it's a lot of unresolved. And I'm thinking of a particular person I'm working with where if I were to start with yourself, actually quite a few people that I know, if I could say this to, their reflex might be, but I hate myself.
Mhm.
I hate my narrative. I hate where I came from. I'm so frustrated and angry with myself. Um, and I'm thinking about where to begin with them, where to continue with them, because I do a lot of holding space for those parts to be with even the part that hates self.
Mm.
But often they hear people like ourselves talking about it. Maybe they're listening to a podcast and they'll say, I want that for me, but I don't know how.
Mm.
I don't know where to start. I can't get myself to.
In this case, usually, I always, if someone is struggling around like that self, starting with the self, I always ask them, like, what's the possibility of what it is that you would hope for if you were talking to someone who is younger than you, or if you were talking to someone who is a family member, a friend, or someone in connection and in community? If you were to take that off of yourself and to put it on someone else, what would that hope or that wish or that dream be for them? And then what would be just one step that you could see for them that they could take along their journey and in the process of the path? Just one thing today.
Mm,
Then the next day, what could be the next thing? And maybe we're just doing two things for the first week. The next week, maybe we can get up to three, or maybe we can still stay with those two things. But I think that invitation here is maybe to take the, or how I work anyway, is to take the weight off of yourself, put it on someone else, and what that advice would be for them, and to watch that person go through the process. And then at some point, when we feel, or you feel, that you're strong enough to, not strong enough, when it's right for you to step into that space, could you assume that for yourself? and take on that level of ownership for you.
I like the gentleness of your invitations, that they are when it feels right for this person on their journey
Yeah.
to kind of embody their next identities.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love the invitation, breaking it down into a small step of possibility. Often people who are in those places of strong self-hatred or just really stuckness are stuck around coming up with even an invitation to a possibility. And another sentient being in their space can be the journey partner, the person that can help nudge the process just a little bit, even if it is, and often it is my experience when working with severely depressed people, where I have to be with them in whatever feeling that they're in, even the ones that are uncomfortable for everyone else around them to be with, and to invite and to be comfortable with those strong feelings. And then to myself not get sucked into stuckness, but be present with it if that's what the feeling is, which can be quite a balance.
And in seminary, we would call this is holding sacred space with another person. And we're very much taught that it's in the silence of connecting soul to soul, spirit to spirit, that there is a feeling of the Holy Spirit that is there. And maybe people don't have that particular language, but just
Yeah,
being able to sit with someone in the silence, there's a soothing feeling that a lot of people feel. And sometimes even after, may not even say anything for 15, 20, 30 minutes, but
right.
thank you for sitting with me in that space or for holding that sacred ground with me.
Thank you for being with me in it. I
Yeah.
can't get anybody to be with me in it. Every other counselor I've seen wants to call an ambulance or put me in a hospital, and you just sat there and you just held that space with me.
Yeah.
I'm
So
curious, Clay, how would you describe that sacred space? Like what would you say is happening in the either the communion between the two people or with the divine? Like what is happening in that space?
Yeah. There's a reference in the Bible that says when two or three are gathered, there I am. And that for a lot of people could be the universe, it could be God. And I reference it as spirit, as God. There's something about two beings or more being together in community where you can feel someone else's essence within themselves. And just by sitting with that, I think our spirit is admitting to each other, I need you. I'm connecting with you. Maybe it's unconscious at first. By just being in this particular space, I feel a form of safety that I may not have ever felt before. And maybe that's not the
Yeah.
word safety that they choose to use, but maybe it's just a form of connection or just a form of acceptance, but without the judgment. And I think the Holy Spirit or presence is with us without the judgment. And so many times people are sitting in communities with folks and they're sitting with the judgment. And when that spirit is there between the connection of folks, where a lot of times people I think are just feeling a sense of attachment to something greater than themselves that's also within themselves.
Mm, yeah. Well, as you're talking, I'm thinking of like how it's so true. Like when we're together, it lowers our stress.
Mhm.
When we're together, we can survive things that we couldn't have on our own, just like logically and also whatever's happening inside.
Mm.
And so I wonder, how do you I've been in community where that happens. It happens with me and trusted friends. I'm wondering how do we find, like, what would be your invitation on how to find people who can be in this silent, sacred space with us.
I would say don't be afraid to test. There was one of the protagonists from the film, and her core group of friends that she was in relationship with, some were new and some she's known for a long particular point in time. They didn't know that she was going through any of the things that she was going through before we sat down and had our conversation. And she said to me, it's not because I don't think they will accept me. I'm afraid to test if I will be okay if I share some of my experiences with them. And so they said, what would it be like if you were to just say this is a little bit of experiment? Maybe just offer to one person that you feel a little bit more connected to and just test that. And she said, I'll give that a try. And so the first time it didn't work out with this actual community member, and I said, could you test it again with someone else and what those characteristics are in terms of what is comfort for you in the form of a boundary? She goes, yeah, I can do that. I can do that. And she did another test, felt a little bit more of a connection. The next week, she tested again with the same person, a little bit deeper connection. And so I said to her, it's never going to be all roses and sunny. Like there's always going to be potential problems. But if you're starting to feel safe with this individual after you've been able to test this a few times, continue to share your vulnerabilities and ask her for hers as well. And they went into this really great dance of being able to back and forth, reciprocity, mutual interdependence, connection, and then their relationship started to go deeper and deeper and deeper, and it was just with one other person. And now there's a three group of member, four. She has her core group of folks, and she's now 72 years old, and for the first time in her life it's a real group of connection.
Oh, that's lovely. It makes me think, Clay, of how we don't often talk explicitly about how to find connection like that. The other day, my kiddo asked about how, what a good friend looks like, and it
Mm,
made me think like, oh, I mean, there's many parts, but one part could be, do you speak vulnerably, and do they speak vulnerably in return?
yeah.
And do you both receive it with an open heart? And sometimes I think about how I have to find definitions for things as a parent that I never had to before. And that has been so educational for me on how to live a life. The things that you're sharing, Clay, are so incredible. Like being yourself as a way to think about what systems you're part of. Um, Making that, the list of identities that we've been, and then making, identities that we'd like to be. And then I also think this beautiful invitation to test, try
Mhm.
experiments
Yeah.
to see who you can be. Um, I would also love to know, is there anything that you're testing right now? Is there something really interesting, cool, or like, counter to how people do things that you are trying out?
I am in the process of working to sell this film. That is the biggest counterintuitive thing that has been a huge test for me for these last several years. Um, what I'm creating is called a category creator in the entertainment industry. It doesn't exist. What has happened before historically, older adults is not something that the entertainment industry is interested in. Their narrative, their stories. It's always that younger individual, regardless of what stats or data say about the spending power and who actually controls the wealth in the country,
Yeah.
which 70% of US households, the baby boomer generation. And so, what has happened for me in these last several years have been trying to test this reality with streamers who are constantly saying over and over again, and this is a quote: nobody cares about old people. Why don't you lower the demographic? Why don't you make it about this group? Why don't you make it about that?
Yeah.
And so the repetition for me, as I am asking a lot of the listeners to do, I've been constantly testing that. The first week, the rejection. The second day, the rejection. The third week, 2 years, constant, constant, constant rejection. At least who's the person I can connect with who may be able to give me an end, who may see the benefit of this, right? And so in these last few weeks, one person has said, I'll sit down and have a conversation with you. And what typically happens is a 5 minute conversation of a pitch meeting,
Yeah.
and it's over super quick. They want to wear the nuts and bolts. I don't care about all the other feel good stuff. One person said, you know what? I respect the fact that you cold emailed me. It's something that I actually would do. Let's hop on a call. A traditional 5 minute call ended up being a 47-minute call is unheard of in the entertainment industry, especially somebody who's on the outside pitching a project that they've never ever done before.
Mm-hmm.
And so in this instance, not only am I called to understand the nuances of what in the entertainment industry is, the ins and outs and stuff like that, I'm testing constantly all that I have learned and just acquired along the way, while also creating this huge 360 ecosystem of apps and trainer programs and different exercises to support the film in itself. You bring those two things together, and it's like the ultimate test of my 20-year entrepreneurial journey. And so I've learned it's really important to practice what I preach, and it's encouraging for other people to say, okay, you're stepping out of your comfort zone and you're trying to create something that doesn't exist before.
Oh, wait.
How can you show me the truth of what you're doing out loud, and how can you demonstrate that, especially if I'm asking other people to do the same thing in my coaching practice? Here's how I'm doing it, and here is the effed up stuff, here's the crazy stuff, and here's the constant rejection. But the invitation to me is, if I want to create generational systemic change, am I going to give up? Or is the purpose more important than the rejection for the ultimate goal of where I know this is going to take not only the different folks who I'm trying to support, but also me in my life? What's the service behind that?
Yeah.
And because their service is very clear to me, it's important that I go and step in all these uncomfortable doors and sit in that as for as long as possible.
Yeah. Wow. It sounds like you have gotten so clear about your actual mission and your actual identity.
Yeah, and it's
Yeah.
because this constant trying and testing and failing and the rejection and this and that, you can't help but get clarity along the way if you stay open to what is the mission? What's the North Star? And do I need to shift it here? Do I need to shift there? And if the shifts are happening, that's great. But am I still becoming greater version of myself along the way? And
Yeah.
is it rooted in truth?
Yeah. Oh, such good stuff, Clay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
It,
I
oh,
love
man.
this. Yeah. It's like this you're iterating identity, but you're rooted in your truth, your authentic, be yourself truth.
Yeah, and the crazy part about this, Sanaa, the person who gave me that meeting, he said it wasn't just a cold email that you had. The way that you wrote about who you were in the process made me say, give that guy a meeting.
Wow.
That's authenticity and identity working in in real time.
The way that you're talking about authenticity, it like pulls at this string of like how badly I know that I still have a gap between how I'm showing up, and I have come a long way, and you know this, Fritz. I have come a long way in embodying my authenticity, and I feel like I know that I have a ways to go to truly get there. And
Mhm.
like I'm unfolding and unfolding and unfolding. And so when you talk like that, it gives me this like, oh, I want that. That
And
much clarity.
yeah, and to your point, what I realized early on after being inauthentic and not myself, there and then, the future is lodged in the here and now. If I want that at the end, I am that right now. And then what are the layers that I need to peel away, as well as congratulating myself on coming a long ass way and being comfortable and grateful for that. And so, if I need to be the person that emailed the CEO of the production company, who am I today and how do I know that they're interacting with each other? They are the same person.
Ooh,
Yeah.
yeah, I love that. You know, I do a lot of parts work with
Yeah.
clients, and there's this one thing that I do. I do it a lot with myself, and on occasion I'll do it with clients, but I have this invitation to people like, your 99-year-old self is like walked in the room.
Mic drop. Mic drop.
And just turn your head. You know what question is burning in your heart, and they know the answer.
Yeah.
What would they say to you?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then do that.
Yeah.
And yeah. My great aunt Lena, she passed last year, 99 years old. She was the matriarch of our family. She competed in senior citizen pageants, and that's what they were called. She came in first in the Michigan pageant and went competed in nationals. Every year I would see her reinvent herself. And this is a beautiful African American woman. Snow globe hair is what we used to call her. And I would say to her, Lena, you're the opera singer here. You're mowing the tractor on the tractor, mowing the lawn on our farm in Michigan. You're jumping off, putting your dress on and pearls, and now you're going to this event. You're on the golf course. You're doing all these different things. And she would tell me all the time that, first of all, she's too young and beautiful not to. But she would say all the time, it's the matriarch in me that is the 100-year-old matriarch, the 150-year-old matriarch.
Yeah.
I have to be like her right now.
Yeah.
Every decade of life, I just watched her just ascend and grow. And I was like, she really is that 150-year-old matriarch that she's always talking about right now.
Right
Yeah.
now.
Wow. Yeah.
Right now.
Wow. Yeah.
Y'all got me speechless. I'm just taking it in,
Yeah, me too, actually.
following the energy of it. And
Clay, I could have this conversation forever.
I know. It just
yeah.
seems like I know when I have like the preaching moment when I was a traditional and I've reached that point in the sermon or the conversation, if you will,
Mhm.
honestly here. And so, um, yeah, I feel it. Yeah,
Yeah.
strongly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Oh, I hope that you will come back and talk with us more, and maybe there'll be more movement on your project, and maybe it will be out, and people can, you know, watch it. And this was amazing. I feel like I'm ready to go and do more testing. I do test, but I think I can do more.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, me too. After this is conversation for sure.
Mhm.
For anyone that's interested in seeing the pilot as it is, the full trailer as well as the film is at justbeginning.info. And if you're curious to continue on with the journey with the women, there are subsequent interviews of where they are in their life right now, as well as different programs that people can join if they're interested in. And there's a full library of radio interviews and national media features that we've been on. And the we're just beginning. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Clay.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, great.
Thank you, as usual, Clay, for bringing it. I've known you for years, and this is, you know, just the beginning.
All pun intended. Thank you both.